Hello and welcome to this new Android development course. This is part 1 on how to make a video player application for Android. So we're gonna start by opening our Android Studio environment and click on start a new Android Studio project. We will select empty activity and then we will click on next. Here we change the name of the application to video player. Okay, we make sure the language that is selected is the Java programming language, and the minimum API level is at least 16. We will click on finish and we will wait for the project to be loaded. So this application will basically do two simple things. The first one is getting all the MP4 files or other compatible video files, and then it will enable the user to play those files using the default video view widget, which is the default way to play video in Android operating system. So right now, as you can see, the project has finished loading, and the first thing we're gonna do is to change the root element of our XML file. For that, we will go to the left under the res folder, and under the layout folder we will find the activity main.xml file. We'll right click on it and then we will click on delete. If you have these options checked, please uncheck them and press in OK. Now we have deleted that layout file. As you can see, we have an error right here, which is normal, and now we will create it again, but with a different root element. For that, we right click on the layout folder here at the left. We right click here, we go to new and layout resource file. As the file name, we will write the same it was previously, which is activity main main, just like this. And now we will change the root element to linear layout, as you can see right here. Now we will click on OK, and as you can see here, we have our new linear layout XML file. If we switch to text mode, you can have that we have you can see that we have this linear layout as the root element of our layout. If we go back to our main activity.java, we can see that this red warning disappears, which is cool. For this tutorial, I will be running the application on an emulator. You can do it on an emulator too, or you can do it on a real device. Right now I'm starting the emulator in order for us to make it faster in the future app launches. So the emulator is starting right now. I will leave it to load in the background. Let me see. Okay, so it's loading right there, and as you can see, I've sent the app to the device, but now we will leave the emulator aside for a moment and we will focus on our application. So as I told you, we have to first be able to get the files. For that, we will go into our manifest file right here, and we will add the read and write files permission. Okay, so we go ahead and start by saying uses permission. Okay, uses permission, and we will specify the read and write permission of our storage. As you can see, the IDE doesn't auto generates this for me because it's loading and something else right now is installing the APK. But now that it has finished installing it, I can start getting the help of the IDE right here. So you go say uses permission, and we're gonna type write external storage, as you can see, and after that we're gonna go and say uses permission read external storage, like that. So now we have these right here, and then the activity right here, you can see that this is kind of highlighted in yellow. So this is just a warning for Google search or something like that. We don't really care, so we can just click on suppress warnings right there, and now it's everything normal. And right here we will also set the screen orientation to portrait, because that's the one we will be using. Okay, and now I will actually run the app on the emulator to see if it works or something, maybe it's not working. So I'm compiling it, I'm installing the APK, as you can see, and soon it will run here at the left. As you can see, is a simple thing that has nothing on it. It only has the video player title and also has the status bar title. So I will remove both of those bars. To remove those bars, we go under the res folders, and under the values folders we open the styles.xml file. Right here we can modify our style. We will start by typing item window no title, and we will set this value to true, as you can see. And we will open another item, and here we'll say full screen, window full screen. We will also set these to true. Now only with those two lines we have removed the bars, so I will run it to test if that worked well. So I am compiling the app. It is now sending it to the emulator. As you can see, it is empty. Everything is just a white rectangle. So it was the titles bars, the previous two bars were removed. Okay, so we go back. We can now close this styles file. We can now close this manifest file, and now we will have to create a way in which we can ask the user for permissions, actually. Okay, so we have to if we are targeting marshmallow on or higher, which is pretty common these days, we have to make sure that we ask for permissions. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. So we will be asking for permissions and creating a dialog that will ask, hey, we will use this permission, and the user will click on enable or allow or not allow the permission. Okay, so this is the onCreate method. Right now we are on the main activity.java file. After that we will start actually coding. The first thing is a code that will ask for the permissions, so the permission request code. For that we'll define it as private static int, actually private static final, because this will be final value. So private static final int, and we will call it in uppercase, in capitals, request permissions, and we will set this value to any identifier. For example, I will set it to 1 2 3 4. Okay, and then we will create an array of strings that will specify the actual permissions that we will ask the user to grant. We'll go and say private static final, but now string. This is string array, so we specify an array right here, and we will call this permissions. As you can see, we open brackets and we end the line with a semicolon, and inside here we will go and type manifest that permission that read external storage. As you can see, we'll type a comma, and the next line we'll type manifest that permission that write external storage. Okay, so now we have specified the request code and the permissions we want to request. We also have to specify the number of permissions. In this case, we're asking for 2. So we're gonna go ahead and type private static final int permissions count. We will set this to 2. Okay, and now we will ask for permissions and we will be preparing the method. The first method we will use is to check if the user denied any permission. So for that we will create the following method: private boolean, which will return true or false whether the permissions are denied or not. So we will call this our permissions denied, as you can see right here. Okay, and inside these we will write a for loop. So we go ahead and type for, we open parentheses and type int I equals 0, equals 0, semicolon, and then we go and say I less than permissions count. So we will check this for every permission. Okay, and I plus, I plus plus, as you can see right here. Okay, and inside this for loop we will check if the user has granted permission or not. So for that we'll go ahead and say if check, so if check self permission, and we will pass the current permission, which is permission at index I. Okay, if check self permission is different than package manager, okay, it's different than package manager that permissions granted. So basically here what are we saying is if the permission is not granted, then do something. Okay, pretty easy, right? Okay, so if the permission is not granted, we will return true, because we are returning the permissions are not granted. Okay, so that's the name of the method. Our permissions denied. So if they are not granted, they are denied. Okay, and after the for loop, we of course have to return false. This means there was no permission denied, every permission was allowed. As you can see here, we have a warning that says call requires API level 23, but we don't really care about this warning because we will call it only when API level is 23 or later. So we can go ahead and say suppress lint new API annotation, and now the warning is gone. So this is the first method to check the permissions. Now we have to also check for another method which will be called when the user clicks denied or allow permission. So we're gonna type override public void on request permissions result. Okay, and as parameters we'll go with say final int request code. So this is the code that we passed. We will check if these gets past the code that we passed previously. Okay, so that's the request code, final int request code, final string, okay, so final string array permissions, and I'll go to the next line and say also final int array grant result. So these are kind of the parameters that will be passed to this method. Now we are overriding it, so we will have to call the super method. For that, we're going to say super dot on request permissions result, and we'll pass the same parameters. So the first one will be request code, the second parameter we will pass will be permissions, and the third will be grant result, as you can see. Okay, now we're gonna go and check if the request code is actually the same that we sent, and we will send this code right here, which is 1234, which is called request permissions. Okay, so we're gonna go and say if request code equals request permissions, okay, and we also check if and grant results that the length is greater than 0, which checks if the results are not empty, basically. Okay, and inside here we'll have to check if the permissions are denied or not. So we're going to say if our permissions denied, so we called method we created previously, and here what we will do if the permissions are denied will be that we will the app cannot work without these permissions, and if the user denies the permissions, then the app is not useful, so the user should allow the permissions in order to use the app. So here, as a quick fix, we will open two parentheses, as you can see, and inside the inner one we're gonna type activity manager. We go outside these and type objects that require null, and we'll type these that get system service, as you can see. And what this is doing is basically telling the system to delete the application user data in order for enable us to keep asking for the permission every time the user launches the app. Okay, it's just a quick fix. So we're gonna say activity service, we will pass that parameter right here, and after these three parentheses we're gonna type dot clear application user data. Okay, and as you can see here, it has a kind of warning again that requires API 19, but we will only call this if API is greater than 23 actually. So we go and click suppress linked warning. As you can see, I can put this in a new line in order for you to see it better. Okay, now that happens. Now that happens if the user denies this, and to close the app we will just type recreate basically. And else, now right here, what will happen if the user actually enables or allows access? If the user allows access for those permissions, we will call the onResume method. Resume method, as you can see right here. Now, since we called the onResume method, we have to override that, and that method will be actually the main method of our activity. Okay, so for that we're gonna go after this and type at override, then protected void on resume. We will open this and type super that onResume. Okay, so now we will is where we do the check of the Android version. To check the current version of Android, we'll type the following: build that version version dot SDK int. So if build that version that SDK int is greater or equal than build that version code dot m, which means marshmallow. Okay, so we check first if it's marshmallow or above, and we also check something else. And are permissions denied? Right here, we will request permissions. So we'll type request permissions, and we will pass permissions and the request permissions code, which is request permissions, as you can see. And after this, we will return. Okay, as simple as that. And we also have to check this every time the onResume is called, because the user may disable the permissions for our application. So this is basically how we do it. Now we're gonna check if the app was initialized, because the onResume method will be called many times and we just have to initialize the app once. For that, we'll create a flag which will be called private boolean is video player initialized. Let me see. So I have a typo here. It's video player initialized, and this defaults to false, of course, in Java. And after this, after inside the onResume method, we will check if it negation is video player initialized, which means if it's not initialized, we will initialize it. Okay, so first at the last line of this if statement, we will say that the video player is actually initialized. So we'll set this to true. Okay, so right now we have this right here, and to initialize these, we will have to actually have some UI elements. The first thing we will do is to list the videos. Okay, so to list the videos, we will go and create a list view. So go inside our linear layout and type list view width match parent height 0 dp weight 1. Okay, and we will add an ID to this list view, which will be list view, as you can see. Now we go back to our main activity.java file, and right here we're gonna say final list view, and we will assign this to find view by ID r.id dot list view, as you can see. Okay, so now we have our list view right here, but we also have to create the items that will be displayed on the list view. In this case, the video name and the extension of the video, for example. For that, we open the layout folder, we right click on the layout folder and click on new layout resource file, and we will create a file name. We will type item, and the root element of this will be text view because it will show text. As you can see, the item is created right here. I can close the preview to see better the code right here, and inside this text view element right here, I will add an ID. This ID will be my item, for example, or something like that. Okay, so now we have created this item, which should be accessed from our main activity.java file. Now the height of this could be different because we don't want it to be much parent. Maybe we can change the height to 50 dp. And as you can see, I can put this in a new line in order to make it easier to see. So we have basically width match parent, height 50 dp, and we also want to center it vertically. So we're going to say gravity center vertical, as you can see right here. And maybe the default font size is too small. We will increase it by saying text size, and we'll go and say 25 sp, maybe not, maybe 22 sp will be great. Okay, and I will leave it there. Maybe we can change the color too. So we're gonna go say text color, and we will go and define a color. For that we go under the values folder, colors XML file. We will open an element named color, and the name of the element will be black. To define the black color in hexadecimal RGB values, we go and type a number sign or hashtag, and then we're gonna type 6 zeros, as you can see, and we define the black color. Now we got an item, and in text color we will type black, so that's the color we defined as black. As is the preview here, you can see the size of the text view, and if I add text, so let me increase the size of this, as you can see right here. If I add text field right here like hello, here you have this, but this is not nice because it doesn't have margin, so we'll add padding actually. So padding, and we will add padding start. We will add 10 dp, maybe 16 dp. Okay, 16 dp. We will also add padding padding left 16 dp, which in some regions of the world this is used. There's some Android versions. We'll also add padding at the end, so we're gonna say padding end 16 dp, and padding right 16 dp. Okay, right now we have our hello thing right here. We can now just delete this hello text because we don't need it for our application. And I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next video we will initialize it, list the video files, and start doing more features. I hope you enjoy it, and I see you in the next one. Bye.